In this video, we'll be looking at the payroll report and how to export payroll changes. So you'll find this within the services section under payroll. You'll notice that by default, the date range is the current month up to today's date. In order to be able to export your data, you will first have to select a company. At any point, you can click on the View Changes button next to an employee's name, and this will summarise the payroll changes for the current month. So employee history is done by date that the change was made, whereas payroll changes history will be if there's any changes for the same period rather than the date that these were added. So we're going to export our data. Before we do so, it's worth noting that any employees who have the status waiting on information will not show up within the payroll reports. They would have had a change made, whether this be an update to the payroll changes, or they have been marked as new, or they've been marked as new and then had an update to their pay or personal information. So we're going to take a look at what this export looks like and compare this against the payroll manager. So you'll see that there are 3 different tabs, one for payroll changes, one for employee changes, and one for new employees. So taking each one at a time, you'll notice that we have Olivia James for payroll changes, and the payroll month is November. And you can see when the entry was added and what those changes were. If we now look at Olivia James over here, you'll see that actually we have some changes relating to a future month and a previous month, and that these were all added in November. However, because they're not concerning the period of November, they won't be showing up in the payroll report here. Only the changes for that current month will show. Employee changes documents anything which can be found within the employee's log here. So this includes any updates to their personal information. So for instance, here we can see that we had 2 new employees who then had some further changes. So once an employee has been marked as new and then there's been an update, so they go from new to updated, they will show within the employee changes. Whereas if their status is still showing as new, for example, Amy here, you can see she's the only employee showing as new still, then we will have all of their details. So these 2 employees here have been moved to this section because if we check the time logs, you can see that some further updates were made. Either they had their status changed to being processed, or there was an update to their personal information. In this case here, looking at the logs, the update was that John is not being marked as a company director. So between exporting the payroll changes and then looking at the payroll tasks to see if there's an outstanding number, this should cover all changes and ensure that you're not missing out on any for the month.